Well, good evening, everybody. Try to adjust this a little bit. Very, very late night here in Crystal Falls, Michigan at the Iron County Courthouse, where I have been covering this trial for 9 days. It's not over yet. Coming back tomorrow, not over yet. Anywho, I'm just going to get started because it's already 8 o'clock p.m. I don't expect this will be done until 9 o'clock, and I probably won't get home until 10 o'clock. And if you just heard me, we're coming back tomorrow. So 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, the jury has the case. They have been deliberating since 6 p.m. They've decided they want to leave for the night and come back tomorrow to deliberate more. The fact that they've already been deliberating for 2 hours is, in my opinion, good news, because the longer the jury is out, the better chance it is that Laura is going to win. I'm just gonna start on in here. This morning we had TV3, TV6, Iron County Reporter, Daily News, one other reporter. We have TV cameras in as David Thayer retook the stand this morning. We did start at 8:30, maybe 8:45 this morning. Immediately they went into the Lang-Dellis incident. If you recall, this is the couple that wanted the death certificate. They talked about David Thayer's personal notes. Now, this is Laura's attorney who is questioning David Thayer starting this morning. They talked about personal notes and how Laura blew up and yelled. He basically described about how Laura blew up and yelled at this poor couple. In these personal notes, and this is before the trial, he never mentions Mr. Dellis at all, and he can't remember dates. These notes he was keeping, he was putting dates of when he thought these incidents were taking place, but in fact he said he didn't remember when the dates actually were. That because his personal notes had a date on top doesn't necessarily mean that's when he wrote it. As Laura's attorneys went over the letter to Dr. Childs in this case, because city manager talked about this couple, this elderly couple, when he filed the letter to the doctor asking for the fitness exam. So his personal story, his personal notes about that incident doesn't match up to what's been testified. The lawsuit was filed March 17th, 2017. There were 2 writings that David Thayer made before the lawsuit. There was never any mention of swearing or F-bombs being made. It was only after the lawsuit those things were said. April 4th, 2017, 1 month after the lawsuit was filed, we heard the first mention of old-haired bitch. This is when Laura said, apparently to a old woman, she called her an old gray-haired bitch. However, the witnesses that were there, 2 of them did not hear that, and they say it didn't happen. Over a half a year later is when he wrote it down. Wait, over a half a year later. A half a year later, yeah, a half a year after it all happened, he hadn't written that down. I mean, before the lawsuit was filed, no mention of saying old gray-haired bitch. It was, in fact, after the lawsuit was filed that came out. Thayer's own notes were wrong, false. Written after the lawsuit, he talks about the profanity first being used. 1 month after the lawsuit, he never talked to Dr. Yarber about what Jim Delhi told him about the death certificate. If had he saw the video, he would have known. He wrote that Miss Lang wasn't allowed to speak, but on the video, she spoke the most. David Thayer testified that he was asked about talking to the witnesses, which he never did. There were 4 witnesses, 4 people who he refused to talk to, only believing what was told to him by this old couple and Rachel and Amanda, who were employees under him. There were many inconsistencies and wrong statements being made. Let's see. It says typed letter for lawsuit. There's more. He typed a letter after the lawsuit was filed, and they were talking about the notes that David Thayer wrote just days after these incidents happened. He said that the testimony he gave today was accurate and true, but the notes he wrote that happened days after the incident were in fact not true. That he actually forgot some of the incidents that took place immediately after it happened, but suddenly remembered it today here in trial. I'm skipping over some of the stuff. It's more about the gray-haired bitch. I'm not trying to stick too much time on all that. Laura accused Thayer in an email of pointing and screaming in my face, and that Thayer never denied it. He never denied that he pointed and screamed in her face. It was in an email. Laura was talking to Thayer in an email, talking about the pointing and screaming in my face. And in fact, when Thayer responded back 2.5 hours later, he never denied that he did it. As a matter of fact, in court, he actually testified that he did, in fact, put his finger in her face and told her to sit down. Thayer kept asking for clarification. I don't understand the question. I don't understand what you're trying to ask of me. I just don't get or understand what's happening. We're talking about emails. He is not familiar with the technology involving emails. He testified that he is not an IT person, therefore he doesn't understand how emails work. This came about because in a response to an email, he says that when you push the button that says reply, so you're replying back to an email, so you push reply, then you go up to the top of the email and you select that and pick the addresses you want to send to. Then you reply back. I've never done that. Have you ever responded back to an email? Like when you push reply, isn't that address automatically listed? You don't have to go up there and put any addresses in. You just hit reply and reply. David Thayer said, I'm not an IT person, so therefore I'm not familiar with that technology. So the defense, or I'm sorry, the plaintiff's, Laura's attorney actually explained to Thayer how emails work. Thayer doesn't notice how emails work. He just never paid attention, he says. Say, when you click reply, you must select the email of the person you choose. That's... apparently, like we said, Mr. Thayer, with all of this experience and great knowledge and saving the city, apparently doesn't know about emails. They tried to say that Laura Thayer actually brought a lawyer to a meeting, and that invasion, that when she brought a lawyer to a meeting, David Thayer freaked out. He thought, why is this lawyer? Why did you come here? Why did Laura start with a lawyer? Laura, why did, you know? Well, it turns out Laura wasn't the first one to bring a lawyer into the picture. It was, in fact, Thayer himself that CC'd a lawyer into a letter talking about Laura, and that is when Laura obtained the lawyer and went to talk to Thayer during that meeting. It's the fact that Thayer CC'd a lawyer, maybe because he didn't understand how emails work. Maybe that's it. Maybe he didn't understand that since he CC'd a lawyer, that he introduced a lawyer into this picture before anybody else. He said that when her lawyer showed up, he took it as a legal issue. Why? Bring a lawyer. Next, the plaintiff talked about Dr. Child's report. The report provided shows Laura would never change, and this is why he decided to fire her. Except the report doesn't say that. Nowhere in this report does it say that Laura wouldn't change. Dr. Childs never said that. Never said that. Thayer testified in deposition that he did say that, and was accused of lying because, again, it is not in that report. In fact, this report says and states both Thayer and Laura would not work together. It talks about how both Thayer and Laura needs to work together. It doesn't say anything about Laura wouldn't change. In fact, it was Thayer who wouldn't change. Doctor saw the issues between them and rejected the letter. Thayer rejected the letter. Thayer thought he was more experienced than this doctor. In fact, the plaintiff called Thayer Dr. Thayer. Apparently, Dr. Thayer knew more about the patient than the own doctor did. Doctor, I almost said it again, Dr. Thayer. So Thayer plays dumb a lot. Thayer again says Laura won't change. And again, like I said, Dr. Child's report says otherwise. Thayer says he thought Dr. Childs was wrong. So he called the doctor to get a more flavorful idea of what was said. His words, not mine. So after reading over the report a few times, he saw the inconsistencies that he talked about. He saw some of the other issues that he talked about that he sent the letter in. And he understood that Dr. Childs would probably see the same thing, and she should be found unfit for duty. When she wasn't found unfit, that's when he called back and wanted a flavorful idea of what was said. A flavorful idea. Apparently this 9-page report about her being good for duty just wasn't enough. You needed a little more flavorful report. They asked him, did Dr. Child's report even matter because you were going to fire her anyway? He responded, yes, most likely. So it took months to fire her. Just dragged this out. Talked about you need a doctor's note, rejected. You need this other doctor's note, rejected. You are posting, you get this other fitness exam, rejected. I saw somebody just post up a comment, where are you from? Why don't you guys post in the comments where you're watching me from today? I'm not going to read them out loud right now. I will later, but I'm just curious, where are you guys watching from? Thank you. City Manager Thayer never called to ask Laura how she was doing the entire time that she was out. Remember, this is a police officer who went out on sick leave. Thayer says that he was very concerned about Laura, that he cared deeply for Laura. Well, why didn't you ever call Laura and ask her how things are going? Are you feeling good? Is there anything I can do for you? He alleges the report by Dr. Childs, the attorney alleges the report by Dr. Childs would have helped Thayer to fire her, but it backfired. So Thayer thought that Dr. Childs would agree with him on all the stuff he sent, all the lies he sent. Thought he would agree. And if you watched the video yesterday, you'll hear about all those different lies. But in fact, she was found fit for duty, and that backfired right in Thayer's face. And redirect. This is where the defense comes back. Thayer's attorney, to kind of go over some of the things. The defense calls missing facts simple discrepancies. Some of the things that Thayer talked about in deposition that he made mistakes about, they weren't lies, they were simply discrepancies. Says the abuse 2 people received. He said that was just too much for him, that the abuse that those 2 couple received in the police department the day before she left was too much, and that even the video wouldn't change his mind. He didn't need to watch the video. He already had his mind made up. Miss Lang says she never spoke. She never had a chance to speak. When in fact that was a mistake. That was a lie. She spoke a lot. If he would have watched the video, he would have known that. Says comments and statements from the computer tech wouldn't matter. Well, the computer tech was in the back of the office, and the video that we watched, the computer tech was actually watching, but he heard everything going on. He knew exactly what happened. But again, Thayer would not talk to him. Because again, the video didn't matter. The computer tech didn't matter. The witness, another witness who came in to file a report or to register a gun, his testimony didn't matter because again, Thayer never asked him. Never asked him. Thayer says, I know for a fact Dr. Childs is an expert. Yet, he refused and questioned his authority. Upon recross, Laura told Thayer she had witnesses. Thayer admits that those witnesses were there, but again, he refused to talk to anyone. Mr. Boudreaux explained to Laura how one of the witnesses, the man that was filing his gun register or whatever it was, who by the way has been watching this trial. I've been talking with him, really cool guy. I believe him 100% on what he said. He actually apologized to Laura because of the way that Miss Lang, this elderly 83-year-old woman, treated Laura. It wasn't the other way around. If Thayer would have watched the video, he would have seen this, but he didn't. He refused to talk to any of them. Nobody was ever contacted. Daryl Waters, he is the person that was in the back office, the IT person. Daryl Waters actually became a member of the Michigan Bar, so he's a practicing attorney now. He wouldn't talk to him. Didn't want to talk to him. Never talked to him. Didn't care what this witness had to say. They talked about Chief Bristol. He is the current Iron River Police Department chief. He testified, and they were going over that sometimes to de-escalate a situation, their training teaches that you swear, you say things, you do things to take control of the situation. And again, Chief Bristol says it is appropriate to swear. Again, Thayer, it was his opinion that she would never change due to Dr. Childs saying that, but he never said that. So at that point, the defense did rest. I kind of did a quick count around the courtroom. We had 26 people in attendance, mostly for Laura, 5 members of the press, including 2 TV cameras. Next, we heard rebuttal witnesses, and up first was Dr. Yarber. Dr. Yarber came back. He actually worked an ER shift all night and came back to testify this morning. He came back to testify about the accident. Dr. Yarber and Laura Frizzo were at the police station. A call came in about a bad accident. They both responded to the scene. Dr. Yarber rode with Laura to the accident. He immediately went and assessed the patient who had severe injuries. He provided medical aid and comfort, and he testified he went from the car straight to the patient. Well, one of the other witnesses that the defense called in witnessed his son had been in an accident, who had been texting and driving, and this man said that Dr. Yarber was moving evidence, that he was kicking stuff from the side of the road before the state police came there to investigate. Dr. Yarber says, no, that never happened because my only focus was the patient. He had no reason to kick stuff. Dr. Yarber is the current medical examiner in this county. He knows not to do that. Therefore, he didn't do it. And the thing that really kicked this in the pants is the man that accused Dr. Yarber of moving evidence. This man's niece was charged for shaking baby something. Apparently there was a case where a baby died because the mom apparently shook the baby to death. Well, it turns out Laura Frizzo was the investigating officer. Dr. Yarber was the medical examiner that found out murder had taken place. And now, months after all this other stuff happens, suddenly his son is involved in an accident because he was texting a girl and driving, that he decided that he was going to accuse Dr. Yarber of tampering with evidence, and how Laura Frizzo cussed him out for it. I totally believe the doctor. Why would a medical examiner who's been a doctor for 20 plus years and has put so much in, why would he kick evidence out of the way or even lie? Next rebuttal was a Holiday gas station employee. His name is Edward Panic. He was a manager of Holiday gas station in Iron River, Michigan, right next to City Hall. So he testified, rebutted, I'm sorry, that Rachel, the city clerk, used to go into the gas station and talk to him. She told, now remember, Rachel, the city clerk, she told this manager that David Thayer was a sexist and that he was going after Laura Frizzo's job. Now, they tried to take that. The defense objected. They did not want his testimony in there. They cited a whole bunch of different stuff, and the judge allowed it. The judge allowed his testimony that the city clerk of Iron River, Rachel, had gone to Holiday gas station and complained, talked about Frizzo, said he was a sexist. In fact, she told this manager that she was going to resign because of David. Remember, she's like this with David. They're co-workers. They're the best friends. She doesn't lie. Well, apparently she does, because it's right here. He was cross-examined. He admitted he was a Laura Frizzo's friend on Facebook. They asked him about a complaint that he had filed many months before this, to which basically it was a complaint made to the police department, and it was about a message or something from Frizzo. But keep in mind, he's friends with Laura now, and the fact that they're friends now should show that they made up, and that he even testified, really, that complaint wasn't a big deal and it was my fault. At that point, we went to lunch. We came back from lunch. Closing arguments did start. I see I got 8 likes. Can we get some more likes on there, guys? Thumbs up. Some more thumbs up. I see 28 people watching. Surely 20 more of you can give me a thumbs up. I'm just going to throw those little tidbits in there for you, you know. Thumbs down works too. I just can't see those. Thumbs up are better. So, closing arguments. Immediately, it was Laura's attorney who came first. He made points that we believe more than likely than not, Laura was fired for being a female due to the bitch comment, being yelled at constantly, being pointed in the finger. She was in a male job where females are not allowed. Thayer was looking for excuses to fire her, including the Dr. Child's report. Talked to the jury and said that that the jury had to, that of all the things that he fired her for, if any one of those things he fired her for, just one, has to do with her being a female, they must come back with a verdict for Laura. That it doesn't have to be the majority, it doesn't have to be the major reason, that sexist, it doesn't have to be the only reason, it's just, it has to be a reason, just one incident. The fact that he said, "You bitch," that is enough right there to play that card of sexism, because when you call somebody, when you say it to somebody, "You bitch," you're actually responding to somebody, you want them to hear you, rather than saying "that bitch" when you're just commenting on something. This is not about reasonable doubt. In a criminal case, the jury must find, all of the juries must find him guilty or innocent. It's got to be an overall decision. But in this case, we have 7 jurors. Only 5 have to come to a decision. Only 5 jurors have to come to a decision of the 7 current juries. If sex was a motive, it only takes 51% of the jury to declare for Laura. But the way it works is, I guess they start off with 8 jurors anyway. At the end of the trial, had they still had 8 jurors, one of them would have been picked out of a hat, and they would have been removed from the jury as an alternate. And the 7 would go back and make their decision. Well, one juror was already let go, so they were down to 7, and that's where they are now. Well, we found out that of the 7, 5 of the 7 juries need to do it. I just saw something. I don't care. If you don't care what I'm talking about, get the hell out of here. Let's see. Thayer was not looking for answers. He wasn't looking for the truth. He was just looking for deception. Talking about the bitch comment. He kept saying that she didn't know. She didn't know about it. That somebody else told her that there's no way that she could have known. However, Thayer changes that story because during deposition, Thayer actually said, "You bitch." During deposition, he testified at deposition that I said, "You bitch." And now it's all changed. Now in court, it was that bitch. In fact, he says he never said "you bitch." That during deposition, he must have been mistaken. He admits that bitch is a bad word for females. It's a derogatory statement. However, another lie. At deposition, Thayer testified that bitch is not a derogatory word, and he could not understand how anyone would think the word bitch would be derogatory towards women. Do you understand that? You guys even, does that just blow your mind? That at deposition, David Thayer, somebody with this much experience, these many jobs behind him, a city manager here, a village manager there, he doesn't know that the word bitch is derogatory? Really? Don't worry though, he changed his mind. He changed his mind because now it is derogatory. He understands that now. He understands that, how bad of a word that is. Well, the defense is saying he knew it was bad then, and the fact that he's changing his story now shows that he lied. He's only changing his story now so he doesn't look like an idiot, because only an idiot would say that. I mean, only an idiot would think bitch is not derogatory. Only an idiot. Talks about intent and motive. Thayer thinks what did it say? Something. Thayer thinks oh, the female thing. It's a female thing. David Thayer has a lot of involuntary reactions to things. In fact, the bitch motive, the bitch comment that he talked about, he says that was just an involuntary reaction. That when it happened, he put the phone down and he said, "You bitch," or he said that bitch, but whatever. It wasn't towards Laura. Laura never heard it, so therefore it doesn't matter. Because if Laura doesn't heard me say bitch, then it doesn't matter how my wording was. It doesn't matter if I'm talking Laura. If Laura doesn't hear me, then it did. That's his philosophy. Laura revealed herself to David because she got emotional talking about the divorce and moving. This is when David Thayer said, "It's a female thing. This is why women don't belong in men's professions. They allege that, again, that was a gut thought, that was an involuntary reaction to the situation. During deposition, he said, I can't remember. Did I say that? He says, it's a female thing. I don't remember saying that, he says, during deposition. But now here in court today, now he says, it didn't happen. I know for a fact it didn't happen. I never said that, and I would remember that now. Never happened. So, next he talked about Michael Nager. And again, this is all towards closing remarks and to the jury. Talked about Michael Nager as being a hero, respected, and a superstar. He remembers that Laura talked to him. It remembers the specific things that Laura said, like why women don't belong in law enforcement. Oh yeah, also we talked about David doesn't swear. He never swears, ever. However, witnesses that they brought forth actually shows that David did swear. Again, in closing arguments here, we're talking about the pink slippers. Again, that the pink slipper incident, it was a gut reaction that Thayer made. They were actually blue sandals, but he told the city clerk that they were pink. And that they talked about how he confronted Laura, got right up in her face, this close. So close, in fact, that Laura got a message from Rachel, the city clerk, asking how his breath smells. Thayer denied it. Thayer says it never happened. We never had that confrontation. I never got in her face. In fact, Rachel is lying. This person that is a co-worker, that is his that he confides in, that he trusts, she's lying about this, that it never happened. In fact, Thayer already knew what he was going to do before that point. They talked about 2 different times she could have been fired, where she hung up the phone, when she refused and wouldn't listen, when she wouldn't mind what he said, because remember, she was serving under the pleasure of him. When Laura put Thayer in his place, he could have fired her. When Laura slammed the phone down, he could have fired her. When Laura talked back on the phone, he could have fired her. What you have to remember is what David said to a bunch of police officers. That David never forgets, he never forgives, and, quote, I ruin careers, unquote. David Thayer has never denied saying that. His investigation was a one-way train. He never gave her a fair chance. He was never going to give her a fair chance. She knew, he knew that she was so stressed out over the Kelly Cochran case, working so many hours, all these different events that led up to it, that Laura felt that he was being sexist to him, that basically Thayer pushed her over the edge. That this last instant where he tried to force her down and pointed a finger and all the other things that he did leading up to this, that he was actually trying to push her over the edge. He wanted her to react. He was taking authority of the situation, trying to provoke her, trying to make her take that first action. Thayer did not rebuttal, again, what she said in the email about being forced back down into her seat. Never said it didn't happen. Never refused it. Never rebutted that story. Thayer brought lawyers in. Thayer brought the lawyers in. Where he CC'd her into that email. In those months, all leading up to this point, Thayer never once tells her her job is in jeopardy. Thayer has never disciplined her. Thayer has never evaluated her. Thayer has never asked her to change because, again, she won't change. They talk about how she was not the only female employee that was fired. In fact, first few months in, Rachel talked about, not the only female employee. So the first months in, Rachel went to the gas station and talked about how Thayer was sexist and how Thayer was going after the police chief, and that he was really just hoping that she would quit. See, when you fire somebody from a job, they have a chance to collect unemployment, and it doesn't really affect you, but it does affect you, because if I fire you and you collect unemployment, well, it kind of shows it was my fault or some fault of the job. But if I can drive you over the top and I can give you so many jobs knowing you can't complete them, if I can just totally give you a good push right over, you will go over the edge and you'll quit. And when you quit, most times you cannot file for unemployment. Most times. I say most times because I actually quit my job once and I filed for unemployment and I won that case. Again, but there was more circumstances behind that. Why the gag order? Why stop the truth from being talked about? Many employees took this gag order as intimidation. Now remember, all employees are at will. Remember, he never forgives, he never forgets. In fact, many employees do say this gag order intimidated them because they were afraid that they would lose their job. Laura's attorneys talked about Chief Bristol being a male who was allowed to take 4-day weekends for the first for 3 months. For 3 months, he's allowed to take 4-day weekends, not on call, doesn't even have to be in town. Laura was not even allowed that same time on medical leave. She was on medical leave, and all she wanted to do was work 40 hours and get her stress level down before the Kelly Cochran case. David would not do that. He would not allow that. Laura was treated differently from men. The former manager, who was an alcoholic, he was mean, disorderly. Everybody had issues with him. When he quit, when he gave his resignation, he tried to come back, and the city council put up a meeting. They had a special meeting to talk about him coming back. Well, what about Laura? What about Laura? How come she didn't get any special meeting? Didn't even give him didn't even give her the time of day. They talked about the note again to Dr. Childs, how David typed a note thinking that they would find her unfit. There was never one mention of swearing in the original letter that David Thayer sent to Dr. Childs. Never one instant of swearing. 7 months later, after the lawsuit was filed, well after the fit for duty exam was filed, is when the 3 F-bombs and the old gray-haired bitch comment came into play. So yeah, 7 months later is when the actual story of when David Thayer's story appeared, that everything leading up to that point was just lies, miscommunications, just an accident. The actual true story is now in court. That's when everybody's telling the truth. They showed that Miss Lane and Mr. Deli, their testimony was not correct. They showed all the different points where their testimony was a lie. The IT tech guy who heard that instant that was in the office supports Laura on this. Also, Mr. Boudris also apologized to Laura and never heard this old gray hair bitch statement. He was right there. Right there. He says that was a lie. Thayer never talked to them after. Thayer had his own facts, his truth. He weighed the evidence upon what this elderly couple told him, about what his city clerk told him, about what the treasurer told him. That was it. That was enough. That was the truth. Screw the video. Screw what Laura says. Screw with this IT person who is also a member of the bar. And never mind this other person that was standing right behind the elderly lady when she went off on Laura. Laura goes around Thayer. Talked about how Thayer accuses Laura of going around him and going behind his back and going to the council, when in fact the employment contract signed by the mayor was the only contract she has. David Thayer refused to redo her contract. So if you read your employment contract and it says in it that you must bring all of these facts, all of these details, all of your concerns to the council, to the mayor, do you read your contract and follow your contract, or do you listen to your boss over here who says he's your boss, who hasn't given you a contract, who hasn't signed your contract? Do you listen to the mayor who signed your contract, or do you listen to him? Who do you go to? The fact that he wouldn't renew her contract, wouldn't redo her contract, made Laura think the contract would still be viable because the mayor signed it. The mayor still has his job today. Talked about Tarsi, how Tarsi claimed the council has no power and has no rules, but the city charter says they do. The fact that the mayor of the city had no idea what his own charter says, he had no idea that he could investigate any employee, including the city manager, and in fact was surprised and thanked Laura's attorneys for providing this information that, wow, as mayor, I never knew that. I didn't know that. Thank you so much for telling this. What an idiot. What an idiot. What an idiot. A little on Mr. Tarsi and all that stuff. He told a lot of lies here, and those are going to come out. I was just told that a FOIA request was filed yesterday at Iron River concerning employment contracts of Mayor Tarsi's family, who are working on construction projects in town, have worked on construction projects in town, and continue to work on constructions in town. The mayor testified and lied on the stand, saying his family never took any contracts. His family is not working for the city. I guess we're going to find out. We're going to see what this FOIA does. I bet David Thayer is not going to want to respond to it. So the council did have the ability to deal with her, as stated in the city charter. Previously, the council voted to change or modify her contract, which was signed by the mayor. And again, Thayer refused to issue a new contract. He, in fact, told Laura not to go to the council anymore. But it was the mayor who set up the meeting for the previous manager. And yet, again, Laura didn't get the same, that the council could have actually called a special session, but didn't. The defense says Thayer can fire Laura for any reason. False. They talk about it in the Civil Rights Act that you cannot fire somebody for any reason. That Laura has rights. And that there are reasons protected that you just can't fire somebody for. Specifically, one of them being you're a woman. You can't fire somebody for being a woman. David Thayer actually said, you don't just fire someone for no reason. He said it. It took 80 days to fire Laura from the first time that she took medical leave to the time that she was actually fired. 80 days. He cited personality conflicts, management issues, and professionalism. If these were all true, why not fire her back in September? Why wait until December, 80 days later? Could have fired her for any reason, right? Why not fire her for all those other things? For 80 days, he had no contact with Laura. Instead, he tried getting a fitness for duty exam, hoping to fire Laura, which backfired. Dr. Thayer, see, I even wrote it down because they called him Dr. Thayer. Dr. Thayer knows more than Dr. Childs. In those 80 days, there was no documentation taken, no discipline, no warnings, no thoughts on anything. 80 days. Thayer wrote that he was concerned for Laura, but again, he never reached out. Phone, email, message, nothing. Next, Laura's attorneys talked about lost earnings. Ultimately, Laura's attorneys are asking for $1.8 million in lost earnings. They had told the jury it's up to them to decide what the value of pain and suffering is. That some of the pain and suffering would be the treatment she received after with the shrink, any doctor's appointment. Pain and suffering, the thought about losing her job or lost her job. When she woke up in the morning, not sleeping at night. She lost family. Her daughter's house burned down. She wasn't able to go for that. Stress of having to move. She can't even support her own children. She can't help her children. And she wasn't able to give gifts for Christmas, which really hurt her. She, in fact, gave 2 months of her life after being fired. So after being fired and all this bullshit, she continued to work. She was a key witness in the Kelly Cochran case. And in fact, she worked for 2 months through that case, never getting paid, but only $400, something that the court pays. Laura Frizzo is a tough lady. She loves her city. She cares for her community. She's grown up here. She's adored the city. She loves everybody. She gave everything that she could to that city. And then ultimately, they're asking for another $1 million for pain. Again, Thayer had the right to fire her for any reasons or no reasons. Thayer had great restraint. He says he tolerated many things. He just let it go. It just slid over his shoulder. No big deal. Is this someone who would wait? I mean, why wait 80 days? Why wait 80 days? Why not just fire and just set everything in motion? Why all these excuses? Why the exam that days after you still decided that that was wrong, that you were still going to fire her? The defense is using her status as a police chief as some sort of power that she's using for herself. I gotta see my notes here. I don't know if we swapped over to the other side. I'm making sure. I got so many notes, I don't even know where I am now. They were talking about the Dead North series, about using the video. Okay, so we did swap over here somewhere. I don't know why I didn't write this down. I guess it's my bad note-taking. So ultimately, I'm just going to go back there. Ultimately, what they were asking for, what she's asking for, is $1.8 million in lost wages, $1 million in pain and suffering. That is $2.8 million they're asking for. And ultimately, it will be up to the jury to decide what that number should be. All right, so this is where her attorney comes on and says, Thayer had the right to fire Laura for any or no reason. That Thayer actually had great restraint, that he tolerated Laura, but just let it go. In fact, she says, is this someone who would have waited? All of Laura's bosses were men. The defense tries to say that Laura wouldn't be told anything by a man, and that Laura uses her status as the first police chief in the UP as a power, that she was a powerful person because she was the only female police chief. The defense said that the Dead North testimony, that when you see Laura on the screen and she's talking about her city manager and talking about this and that, she's saying that Laura was the problem. Laura was the problem. Laura had the hard head. It's Laura who didn't like what was going on. Laura brought on the drama. Laura didn't trust anybody. And anytime Laura gets into trouble, she runs to the city council and the mayor. However, in the contract, it says that. It says that. Laura is an at-will employee. Laura works at the pleasure of the city manager. I don't understand why that's even in there. Why? Why is that wording even in there? Why? Why do I work at the pleasure of somebody else? Can't you come up with a better word than that? Laura didn't take orders, and she would not change. Thayer won't play games. He won't be bullied, and he will not be charmed. Laura always went to the council. David Thayer knows what he is doing. In fact, David Thayer says the council is dysfunctional. The city council of Iron River is dysfunctional. That's what he says in testimony today. The defense also talks about, they're spending a lot of time talking about Laura under previous manager, the former manager. They talk about Laura, that when Thayer was first hired, Laura continues going to the manager and the contract per the contract. There's going to be 9 dings. Great. Laura is demanding. Laura is always ranting, and in fact, David stood his ground. Just 1 week into his job, Laura would not submit, and that's his words again. Laura wouldn't submit to his authorities. I don't know why the defense think. Why would the defense use that? Like, they literally told the jury that Laura wouldn't submit to his authority. Remember, the chief serves at the pleasure of the manager. David Thayer said that the bitch comment talked about how Laura is the person that went off during that. That when Laura slammed the phone down where he yelled bitch, because remember, it was Laura who slammed the phone down first. And then he was like, oh, you bitch, or that bitch. You know, that's when he said that. He said that when that full phone got slammed in his ear, that was the worst experience he had ever had anywhere in public office. He has never experienced anything like that. She went off. She was unprofessional. And in fact, the defense says she should have been fired right now, but said David has great restraint. That David just let it go right over his shoulder. David could have fired her, but he didn't. She tells the jury to use common sense, that in fact it was poor David. Poor David. That truck is pretty loud, isn't it? She kept talking to the jury and asking them, what's more plausible? What really happened? They tried to say that Officer Nick Grabowski was in fact Laura's biggest fan. During deposition, he in fact says that it was you, bitch. And that, I'm sorry, yeah, but they're talking about Nick Grabowski. He was his biggest fan, therefore Nick would lie. They were saying that Nick Grabowski heard the bitch comment, and Nick went downstairs and told Laura, oh my God, he just called you a bitch. During deposition, Thayer wrote down, you bitch. In fact, they asked him about it. And now he says it was an honest mistake, that now he knows what really happened. But during deposition, those were mistakes, inconsistencies. Nothing, no big deal. They said Laura never heard the bitch comment, therefore it should not matter anything to Laura. Laura should have no concerns over the bitch comment. Even if she learned after, it doesn't matter because she wasn't there, therefore it doesn't affect her. Laura once apparently berated Thayer over a car parked blocking a door. He says she called Thayer up and just screamed at him about this car blocking the door and why won't you fix this? Again, the attorney says David could have fired her then, but didn't, because David is a nice person. David cared about Laura. David wanted anything he could do for Laura. David is such a heartwarming individual. They talked about the meeting with Laura, how she's talking about divorce and missing kids, and that actually Laura should have been apologizing. She was the bad person. That when David Thayer apparently told her that men don't belong, or women don't belong in men's jobs in law enforcement, that it was in fact Laura who should have apologized at that point to David, because David, again, is so nice to her. She says, the defense says, that poor old woman, just berated by Laura, swore at, just crushed by what Laura said. She says that Thayer has the absolute right to force Laura to stay. You are not allowed to leave. Sit down, Laura. Sit down. We are not done yet. You may not leave. The defense says Thayer has the right to force her to stay. Really? It's not like a state trooper just pulled me over and I'm like, I don't want to be part of it. Screw you, I'm leaving. We're talking about an interaction between an employee and their boss. She didn't have to stay. She could have walked out. In fact, David could have fired her right then and there. But he didn't. He didn't. Another chance, and he didn't. But of course, again, it's David. He's such a nice guy. The next day, she left on a medical return. Never came back. It was during that meeting, actually, that David told Laura that the council was upset with her and they actually wanted her fired. That David was the person standing up for Laura. It was David. He's the hero in all of this. The former city manager kept saying that the missing person case was not a case for Iron River, even though he lived there. Chris Regan should have never been investigated. When Chris Regan disappeared, he should have just disappeared. I want to bring up this right now, that we have another missing person in Iron River. You've all seen it locally. If you're following me on Facebook, you know about this. I don't remember the details. I don't remember his name. He's missing from Iron River right now. And it just makes me wonder that even David says that shouldn't have been investigated. But they're thankful it was now. But back then it shouldn't have been investigated. Is David stopping the police chief today? The current one? Is he stopping Police Chief Bristol from investigating this other missing person? I mean, because if they believe that Chris Regan should have never been investigated, maybe this new missing person, him too, maybe no big deal, right? And then I wrote down blah, 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 because that's what really the defense, just blah, 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 blah. Really, I could tell that the jury was just, they're getting upset, they're getting eager, bending forward, stretching, trying to get position. They just can't get the right eye. The defense brings up the word quirky. Do you remember the word quirky yesterday? Because if we remember right, Amanda said quirky. Rachel said he's quirky, talking about David. It's weird the defense now says both Rachel and Amanda uses the word quirky because he's quirky. He's a fun-loving guy. They think he's quirky. Personally, I think she said that to counteract what I was thinking is, how did two separate people that didn't talk to anybody about testimony, they both said the same word describing Thayer as quirky? Personally, I still think they talked to each other before this trial. David begged Rachel to stay. And in fact, okay, so Rachel said she was going to quit. In fact, as the plaintiff says, and was testified to, Rachel complained to the Holiday gas station manager that she was going to quit, that David Thayer was sexist, and David Thayer was going after the police chief. David begged Rachel to stay, and in fact, I'm not kidding when I say the defense says David and Rachel cried together. Oh, Lord. Oh my, Rachel, please, please, Rachel, stay. Oh, thank you, Laura. Eyes, Laura. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for staying. Oh, and they both cried together, and they both shared this moment, because remember, David is so emotional. What a crock of shit. Oh my God. Pull out the toilet paper and start wiping the, oh my God. Never suspended her, never wrote her up for anything. Many excuses to fire her, but never did. Talked about the cold case and how that was fabrications and a lie, that the former drunk manager didn't want these records sent over, but that Laura had lied, that Laura decided that she was going to send these over anyway. They talked about the defense now. The defense is talking about Laura's lump. Laura found a lump on her breast. I'm not even comfortable talking about this, but again, it came out. We need to talk about this. Laura had a lump on her breast. Laura was worried, as she should be. As she should be. You have a right to be worried about a lump on your breast. If I had a lump on a testicle, I would be worried. The defense says Laura did not need a biopsy. They said that because of the mammogram, because of the doctor's information, that a biopsy was not necessary. And in fact, if Laura wanted one, that was a lie, because a biopsy is not necessary. I'll tell you what, if you had a mammogram, or if you have a lump on your breast or your testicle, and you go to the doctor and they tell you in the UP here, they're like, nah, it's nothing to really be worried about. It's just a cyst. No big deal. No worries. You don't need to do anything. Do you have a right for a second opinion? Do you have a right to be worried? Do you have a right to have a concern? Do you have a right to go to somebody else for a second opinion or anything? They said that Laura just simply lied, that she lied about this, that she lied about needing a biopsy. I don't understand why any woman would lie about anything like that. The fact is that she didn't have a biopsy. It did come out. Laura says she did not have a biopsy. She said she wanted one. She said she was going to have one. That she actually made the trip down to where she was supposed to be for one, but none ever happened. Maybe she had to change her mind. Again, it's her breasts. It's her concerns. No matter if it took 2 months later to decide she didn't want one, it was her decision. It's her body. Nothing about this has anything to do with David. This is some of the information that he was so concerned about getting. I can understand why Laura was emotional. She's going through a divorce. She was losing all of this stuff. She had a lump on her breast. Isn't that enough to be concerned about? The defense says and accuses Dr. Yarber, our current medical examiner in Iron County, of lying. He's making up things. He made it all up. Dr. Yarber made up stories for Laura. He put his whole career on the line for this personal friend, Laura. Absolutely correct. You absolutely. Why wouldn't a doctor lie? I mean, right? Thayer instructed and told Yarber, I need medical records. You need to supply me with medical records showing what Laura was out for. Again, HIPAA. Don't you understand HIPAA? And again, defense says the doctor falsified records. They say the doctor falsified records. A current medical examiner in this county, this same medical examiner who investigated the Kelly Cochran case, the same medical examiner who investigated the death certificate for the couple in the office, the same medical examiner who found the baby had been killed by a shaking baby syndrome, the same medical examiner was lying. The defense just kept going. At this point, I looked at the jury. They really looked tired. One actually kept looking around the courtroom. I don't think she really wanted to look at the defense counselor who was just, talking to the jury. I can again tell you there are 3 women on the jury and 4 men. The defense says if Laura would have just told David that she wanted time off, David would have given it to her. That, again, it's Laura's fault. That Laura is the one who started all of this. Laura is the one who went on medical leave and lied about a breast biopsy, because it was Laura the whole time. That Laura should have asked for time off. David would have gave it to her, no questions asked, because he's a nice guy. David Thayer liked Laura. He didn't hate her. The defense talks about Anthony. Anthony was a new recruit police officer that was brought on into the force. Laura was training Anthony into the force of Iron River. Today, the defense says Anthony is worthless. New recruits fresh out of the academy are worthless. This is what this defense today said about new police officers fresh out of the academy. They are, in fact, worthless. You should never hire anybody out of the academy. That, in fact, you should be hiring police officers, because apparently there's a whole bunch of them looking for jobs. This gag order that they talked about, I'm skipping over that. I don't understand my own notes again. Oh, okay. So they ordered a gag order. They talked about how nobody should be talking to the public. There should be no communications with the press. And in fact, they said Laura's the one that went to the paper. The defense was just basically talking about how important this gag order was. It was, I know, I made my own side note here, and that's kind of actually confusing me, but my own side note was that if David Thayer put a gag order on that he didn't want anybody to talk, that he was concerned about this lawsuit, he was concerned about any employee talking to Laura because of the backdraft of this lawsuit, why did David Thayer go to the press himself? David Thayer went to the press. He admitted he went to the press during this gag order. David Thayer talked to the press about Laura, about her medical issues, David Thayer wrote an article with this. I don't know if he wrote it or he helped Jerry write this, but he wrote an article or helped write an article that was supposed to be released that would ease the public. But unfortunately, that article came out after she was fired. Mike Nager, are you watching right now, Mike? I know Mike Nager is the retired trooper who has been donating 100% of his time to finding missing people in the UP of Michigan. Mike, buddy, you are a hero in my book. I told Mike tonight, I've been messaging back and forth with him, that I hope someday somebody makes a movie about him, because what he does with his time, donates everything to help find missing people in the upper Michigan area. Incredible. Just incredible. Mike told me tonight that he was happy and proud, that in basic words, that he was happy that I was doing these updates, and he told me that I was doing a good job. Nothing that I can do will ever compare to what Mike has done for this state. Anyway, the defense suggested that Mike is wrong. They say that because he couldn't remember specific dates of when things were said, that more than likely he was just making things up. That, again, this retired state trooper of 20 plus years, this person that donates all of his time to help find missing people, was simply wrong. He couldn't possibly remember. And at the end of this, the defense says, is this all you got? To Laura's attorneys. Is this all you got? Is that it? That's all you got? And it was at that the defense rest. Laura's attorneys were able to do a recross, talking about the closing arguments, talking about what the defense just went over. Basically, this attorney stood up in front of all of the courtroom, the jury, the judge, everybody, and he said very loudly that he was very proud to be Laura's lawyer. He said this case, the incidences that happened, the things that happened to Laura, the sexism that took place, this is the reason very few women come forward. It's just like rape allegations. Very few women come forward because the emotional distress, the fear of what might happen, the thought of going through trial, the things that happen to women this day and age is why women rarely come forward this day and age. Laura's attorneys talked about her contract and how the Mayor Tarsi talked about the contract negotiation. Mayor Tarsi said that you should use every tool in your box. Well, she did. In her contract, it said to go to the council with your issues, to deal directly with the mayor. The mayor even said in his own testimony, use all the tools in your box. And the plaintiff, the lawyer, says absolutely. You use all the tools in your box. Laura's attorney again brought up the bitch comment. Thayer, in his deposition, said it was not derogatory, but now, today in trial, says it is. He was lying in deposition, telling the truth today. Or was he telling the truth in deposition and lying today? One of the two. Either way, he lied. The video we watched supports exactly what happened. Again, David Thayer's story changed over and over and over. No words about the F-bombs. No word about what Laura called her, an old gray-haired bitch. Nothing about that before the lawsuit was filed. Nothing on personal notes. Nothing on anything until after the lawsuit was filed. That's when all of these stories changed. That's when Thayer suddenly remembers exactly what happened. The fact that Dr. Child's fit for duty exam found her fit, that was the only purpose of that. It didn't matter what else was in there. she was fit for duty. David Thayer had already made up his mind. David, during the Kelly Cochran trial, tried to say that he didn't fire Laura because he truly cared. Again, the plaintiff's attorneys, Laura's attorneys, are saying that he says he truly cared, that he says he couldn't say anything because of the gag order, but in fact, he had interviews with Jerry from the press of the Iron River Reporter, talking about the medical leave. A city manager talking to the press about medical leave of Laura after he fired her during a gag order. If he was that concerned about all the things concerning the Kelly Cochran, why not wait until after the case? Again, plaintiff tells the jury sex doesn't have to be the only reason. It doesn't have to be the major reason. It only needs to be involved. Only one item needs to involve. Hi. Hi, Michelle. Michelle just drove by. Who else we got? There's another one. I got people driving by waving at me. You see them going by right there. Oh, here's another one. Ah, you're watching me. Awesome. He's watching me right now, driving by, showing me on the phone. I'm watching you. And, well, you know, that was pretty much it. That's blank. It went from there to blank. So that was it. That was it. At 6 p.m., the jury was given the case. They went immediately into deliberations. I went out to the gas station, got air in my tire, got a snack to eat, came back to the courthouse. A few cigarettes in between, a lot of people talking. A lot of people were still in the courthouse right up until the end. Let's see, I'm at an hour, 17 minutes now, so roughly around 8 o'clock. Somewhere around 8 o'clock, the judge came out, the jury came back in. We didn't know if there was actually going to be, if they had a verdict or what was happening. And ultimately, they've decided to end for the night, go home, get some rest, come back tomorrow morning and start deliberations again. So I think that's really it for tonight. I will do another video tomorrow. I haven't really decided if I'm going to do it live or not. I really don't know. I'm just going to kind of go by the seat of my pants. Depending on the verdict, I guess. I don't know. I thought about doing a live stream immediately after the verdict is done and the court's proceedings, you know, but I got to be careful because the jury still has rights. We need to keep their identities secret. If the jury wants to talk about it afterwards, they can come to us, but we cannot seek them. I think we can maybe ask them a question, but I cannot identify them if they don't want to be. Yeah, it was quite an interesting day of events, and like I said, I brought my big camera with me because I thought about actually making a YouTube video, not on my phone, more high def, kind of showing all the people after it, and maybe we'll get a little word in with Laura. I will tell you right now that after this entire process is done, the trial is done, I will be having a sit-down interview with Laura, one-on-one, and with Jeremy. I don't know where we're going to do it yet. We're going to do it here somewhere local, and that will be eventually available to you on YouTube and on Facebook. General interview on everything, from the Kelly Cochran case to this, to her feelings, things that weren't mentioned, things she might have wanted to say. It's going to be a very full, long interview with Laura Frizzo. So we do have that to look forward to, and well, I guess we should probably check up on some messages, eh? Or comments that you guys have been leaving. I think my wife is watching right now. Honey, if you're watching me, it'll be 10:30 before I get home. Mary D, I hope you know I'm crying. Why do you think, Mary? I don't know if it's actually going all the way back up to the top. I don't think it is. I don't think I can go back and see all your comments right now. I'm only going back to 840 and it's stopping me there, so I can't read any more comments back before 840. I'm just going to skip through here and see if anybody has questions. Kentucky here, Jason, thank you. Stephanie, celebrating the 19th anniversary of my 21st birthday. Cute. Now that's cute. Funny, Stephanie. I don't see many comments, or any questions, just a lot of comments. I see you guys are talking back and forth. If you guys have a question, post it right now, because I will get to it. If you don't have a question, don't ask it. But if you got a question, now is the time, because this video is ending real soon. Stephanie says he refused by his testimony. He refuses to instate or update a contract. So by law, it defaults to the last known contract. I think that's exactly what they're saying. That's what I would believe. Thayer can also be fired for no reason. That's correct. He's a good old boy member. You're right. Good old boys club. If the city don't want this sexual suit stain, he's gone. Yeah, I personally, I think they should fire them all and start over. Are you the same guy that shows panhandlers? I sure am. Jason is cool. Thank you, I am. Put David on a train heading north. Can't we just tie David to the train tracks and wait for the train to come? Unsubscribing now. Thank you. Go away. I don't want you here. I don't get that. Like, if you're going to unsubscribe. Kentucky here. Awesome. Just moved here 2 years ago, Matthew says. Can the public remove the mayor for hiring Thayer? The mayor is an elected position. He was elected to be the mayor, so I'm not exactly sure. Robert says, did this happen in your area? No, Iron County. I'm in Dickinson County. I'm 35 miles away and pretty far to go. But, guys, that's going to be it for day 9. Again, I want to thank every single one of you for watching throughout this whole entire trial. I appreciate the 23 likes, and I'm sure that we'll get a lot more likes as this video is watched. Again, jury is deliberating. They go back tomorrow morning. I will be here. I'm coming back. And again, please give me that big thumbs up if you would. If it involves a thumbs down, that's okay. Please make a comment below. I will try responding back in the next few days if I can. Also, make sure you're a subscriber. Click the little bell up here so you know when I go live. And links down below. I've got Twitter. I've got Instagram. Make sure you check out my Facebook page. I post a lot on my Facebook page about where I live and the things I do. Last but not least, if you like the content you're watching, you want to help me out, maybe you have a story, maybe you want me to come cover an event, whether it's snowmobiling or any of the other things I do, you can simply click the link below, send me a PayPal donation, and I will come cover your event. And again, if you like my content and you want to give something, $1 or $2, cool. If you don't want to give anything and you just want to leave a comment, awesome, I thank you. I thank everybody for your time and for your patience. And I know Laura does too. After all, this entire process, my video coverage is for Laura. I care for Laura. I've never known her before this. I saw the story go out and I wanted to be part of it. That's it. That's really all I got. And again, with that, guys, again, I really do sincerely thank all of you. And I really hope that you join me tomorrow, whether it's on my live video or whether it's the video I make and I post that reveals the verdict in this case. So with that, again, I thank you and I wish you all well and have a beautiful night.